Hey, Joe.
Uh,
It's me. Are you happy to see me?
no.
I shaved my head for you.
No, you didn't.
I shaved my head. Well, not for you, but I did shave my head.
Why is your head shaved? And why is there a tattoo of a barcode on the back of your head?
I'm not Eric at all. It's me, Hitman.
Oh, wow, what a surprise.
Lucky,
just like a movie.
Just like we're going to be, the movie we're going to be talking about, Hitman. Originally released in 2007, this film follows a man who's doing a cosplay of Hitman, but is not actually Hitman from
Apparently.
the games.
No, not at all.
It stars one person I've heard of, named Timothy Olyphant.
What else has he been in?
He's been in a couple of shows. He played Bruce Willis's son in one of the bad Die Hards. That's really all that comes to mind.
One of the bad Die Hards, to imply that there was only ever one bad Die Hard.
No, I said one of the bad Die Hards to imply there are multiple bad Die Hards. Well, we just watched Hitman. Let's talk about it. Because believe it or not, Joseph,
Hitman's Legend of the Hit.
This was
Man.
this was based on a video game. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I know.
Believe
That's hard
it
to believe.
or not. So just what were kind of your first impressions? Just like within the first couple minutes of the film, what were you thinking?
Well, to be fully honest, it seemed like a run-of-the-mill action film. It seemed to fit the line of anybody who likes, I wouldn't say like James Bond, but you know, any film that's kind of in that field. Mission Impossible. What's another good example?
Any other action movie?
Well, no, because it doesn't have the same appeal as, for instance, like Fast and Furious and Die Hard, but it does have this stealth.
Does it?
We'll get to that. This is first glance. At first glance, it has the appeal of those type of movies, of the James Bond-esque movies. All right.
I wouldn't even compare it to those.
Well, we'll get to that.
I mean,
now, what is your first impression?
It was exactly what you would expect a 2007 subpar action movie to be. Literally,
there you go.
exactly what you would expect.
So, in the same vein,
And you know what?
as those, James Bond films.
James Bond, Mission Impossible. Those are good. Those are top tier.
Sure, but that's what they're trying to achieve, though.
I guess. I don't know what this is trying to achieve. But luckily, our opinions changed throughout the movie, did they not, Joseph?
Mine didn't.
Mine didn't either. But
What a twist.
there were a lot of twists in this movie. Some would say too many.
There were, okay, so first grievance. Let me go ahead and mention first grievance.
First blood.
Actually, I'll say first story grievance, because I got to categorize these.
'Cause there's a lot.
First story grievance is that some aspects did not make sense, and they were revealed later, so that, okay, cool, yeah, you reveal it later, but you did not allude to anything. For example, as the movie went on, we of course, in the beginning, we get the introduction, we see, this is where the Hitman comes from. This is the Society of Hitmen.
The Hitman House.
The Hitman House. We see a bunch of little kids getting their back of their bald heads tattooed.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, this must be where the group comes from.
It's the hazing.
And cool. And then later we get another scene that alludes back to that. I was like, okay, cool. We kind of really didn't need this because we kind of figured it out, I guess. But then there's other stuff that there is no allusion to. There is no, like, we would have figured it out. Where we're like, we have to guess who's who and who's where, who's on whose side.
You know, something that bothered
The
me.
movie literally gives the premise of, here's the hitman, he's given a mission, he quote-unquote fails the mission because the guy who he killed is quote-unquote not dead, and then he continues to go kill this man for no other reason other than it's his mission, even though because he failed the mission, people are out to kill him.
But he's trying to get that money.
Who's going to pay him?
That's a good
Who's
point.
going to pay him?
Because
the organization
the
is out
agency
to
was
kill
like,
him.
hey, fuck you.
Well, and they didn't. Now, if they had stated it was a strongest man survives mentality, and they had made that clear, then of course we would have expected, okay, once he kills all the other hitmen and comes back, he's got the job.
Hang on. Technically, if you had the right money, I feel like there would be nothing in the ICA like contract book that said you couldn't send a hitman after another hitman.
Probably not. That's a good point. It could have just been the external force. It wouldn't have been the organization. It would have just been the people who were trying to kill him.
And boy, do they send a lot of hitmen after him, like 7 of these motherfuckers.
Which is what makes me think it's probably not the bad guys.
You know what bothers me? You know what's been bothering me a lot more since I saw it?
All right.
There's a scene of the trade where Hitman fights 3 other hitmen.
In the subway, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them is black.
Yeah.
And, like, that's fine. But every other hitman looks exactly the same, except this one black guy. Like, they're all bald white guys.
Well, it made me think...
With the same build.
Don't take this wrong. It made me think he was a completely different character.
It's just like, why is there just one black guy in the organization? Like, if you're gonna have diversity within the organization, that's cool. But, like...
Why no other races?
Yeah,
Why
show me
not
like
some
some
Hispanics?
Asian guy, or Vietnamese. That's still Asian, I guess. African. I guess it could have been African.
But yeah, diversity enough beyond that. It was literally multiple Caucasians, old Caucasians, and this one black guy.
Just one black guy. Hey, he's the token black guy in the agency. They got to keep him for
another
affirmative
story
action.
grievance. Is there's these expected things from the organization, expected rules, I guess. One of them being, let's die with dignity, and they all pull out tantos.
They all in sync.
In sync, they all pull out little katanas.
They go to town. That was actually probably my favorite action scene.
Well, it was a good scene, but there was nothing established where it was like, okay, this would have probably made this movie a little bit more stupid. But if we had seen more of Hitman's youth and his growing up, right?
It couldn't have hurt.
For example, we see him growing up. We see why the organization works. We see how it works. We see that people can call hitmen on other hitmen. We see that all these different things. We see a scene where he's training with these other hitmen, maybe ones that allude to the ones he fights later, and they all have little knives and stuff.
And there's one black kid.
Yeah, and he's looking back and he's nodding, you know.
And then we're like, oh, well, that's very progressive of him. Speaking of that, this was a very progressive movie.
Was it?
We had a gay couple. I believe Hitman.
We had several scenes that
Hitman was. I believe the term is asexual.
Yeah.
Which means you're not into either. There was a transvestite.
He's into murder.
He's into murder, maybe.
Murder gets him off.
The transvestite. This is very progressive, but there was a black guy in the organization.
It was a black guy with the police.
Yeah. It was very progressive for such a shitty film.
By that to say that it was not at all progressive.
But the story as
everything that was inserted felt very shoehorned.
What did you think of the story as a whole, though? Like, the overall plot?
Subpar. If it had not been in the Hitman franchise, it probably would have made, not a memorable movie, but it would have made an okay movie that you'd see on TV every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Instead, it made a bad movie?
Instead, it made a bad movie only because there was so much that was left unexplained. And then you're thinking, well, maybe if I go look back at the games, it will explain it. And no, it doesn't. And it just left so many gaps.
I mean, I guess in one respect, they tied it into the games well. Like, games could still exist after this movie. It didn't, like, change up. Like, Hitman didn't die.
It just said it didn't affect the game's story, but I would personally say it has no correlation to the story whatsoever. It is its own separate entity.
Well, that's my big problem. I've only played the 2016 Hitman, so maybe the earlier games are different. But this Hitman, he felt a little too much. He had a little too much expression going on.
If we look at the older Hitman games, up to about maybe 2012, and we look at those games, we notice this character of... We notice this character of stern, kind of robotic nature, and that carries over into the 2016 series. Now, I think that his animation could be chalked up to the technology present at the time.
But it works. Because he's like a cold, unfeeling assassin guy.
Right. And he's not to have emotion. His expression hardly ever changes.
Once again,
you could chalk that up to animation.
He's got that deep voice.
He's got a deep voice. He goes, and this carries over into the 2016 games as well.
Instead, we got Timothy Olyphant fucking smoldering at a Russian woman.
Not just smoldering, eyes wide for the entire movie,
He did not
Now,
have
now
the Hitman
I will give him
expression.
credit. He did have the powerful eyes, and that's something that the Hitman does have. Is he does have these glaring,
Yeah, he had a
you
good
don't,
body.
you don't want
for
to
it.
look him in the eyes. You know,
He had the walk down.
he got the walk.
All I wanted to see was a fun movie with a bunch of fun heists, like the games, where
Sure.
he goes into a location, and he could have easily done it with this story, like maybe he goes in and he kills Belikov the first time, and then it's not Belikov, and he's like, shit, I gotta go in and heist it a second time, but now I have to do it differently, and now they're on the lookout for me. Because I was a little messy the first time.
Well, see,
maybe
that goes
maybe
with
I
the
left some
argue.
loose
That
ends.
goes with the argue of it being too much like the games.
But that's not a bad. I mean, you
And-
could easily fit a story.
Well, with this, no. Well, with that though, if you have the same scenes now, because you even brought this up when I tried to present an option for a movie, is if you make it too much like the games, why not just go play the game?
I wanted to play the games.
See, that's the different though. That's you're thinking on that fact. If
I
we were
think
to
you could
about
make a
making it
compelling
good movie,
story.
You could
Like
have
you-
easily included two actual heist-based scenes where you're going in and infiltrating the scene, and then you could have it mixed in with other just straight up random action, stuff. But the fact there was hardly any,
There was he was in a costume
there
twice.
was one
We
scene
did not
at the
see him
end.
get in the costume or knock anybody out.
No, which I'll give credit to that much. Not to say that it was the best choice, but that it makes sense because it's like, it keeps the illusion of where is he? The audience is like, where'd he go?
I think they could have done a fun heist movie set in one location with still a very good story. Basically, just make it Die Hard, but less subtle, I guess. Where he's turned into the fucking henchman. He's crawling around the building. They don't know where is he. Where is he? Did you hear something? What's that?
All right, so we've touched on story, and we've assumed how we can make it better. What about actor choice? Now, like you said, there's only one actor you recognized.
I mean, he's the only character I know from the Hitman franchise, and he fucking sucks. Or at least maybe. Well, I mean, like Timothy Olyphant's a great actor, but
Sure.
I don't think he was, as they say in the biz, I don't think he was right for this role.
I 100% agree, and I less for his acting skills, more for his just general appearance. Because one of my grievances with the visuals of the film was just facial expressions galore. You look at any given scene, and there's a facial expression that just does not match the scene, and it looks like somebody just like pinched him.
I think
It looked like somebody just pinched him, and
I read
making a face.
the synopsis of the 2015 Hitman.
Yeah.
Agent 47 or Hitman 47 or whatever the fuck it's called, but I think maybe that one's gonna be better because it pairs Hitman with like a younger agent, so maybe
we get to see an older,
maybe
gruff
maybe
Hitman.
she has expression and he's just like the cold, unfeeling straight man.
Yeah, like Men in Black kind of.
Yeah. Instead, we had Timothy Olyphant cutting a rug, being charismatic, and making jokes sometimes. It was weird. Let's talk about.
Now I could see in his own straight man way. I could see the game Hitman making jokes, but not in the same way that he
does
in
make
this
jokes
film.
actually.
Yeah, but
he's
I'm just
very
saying, like,
ironic.
right,
But it's a completely different. Yeah, he's not charming.
no,
at
he
all.
does it. He does it as just like, well, that.
It's
was,
just funny because he says it like that. Let's talk about the romance that didn't work at all.
All right.
Where do you even begin?
They introduced this female character, which for one moment I thought was going to be more important. She really wasn't. There was no reason for him to keep her alive. He
had no
She
arc.
was literally she was a character that was introduced that was supposed to know the character that he was going to kill. Okay,
she
cool.
saw him or something.
She was hired and abused by him constantly.
No. She saw Hitman. That's where it all started. She was a witness. Apparently.
Yeah. But
So-
at the same point, he thought initially to keep her alive is what I'm saying because of the connection that she had with
right.
the other
And
guy.
then that turns into her trying to have sex with him. Which
No. Here's what it turns into. It turns into the fact that connection was useless and Hitman still kept her alive.
Well,
No, the connection was straight up
No,
useless.
you're right, yeah.
Because the real guy, the real Belkov, was already dead.
yeah, they
On
got the
top of the
information
fact-
about the brother from the CIA guy.
Yeah. She offered nothing other than a tear-jerking backstory.
I mean,
What'd she offer?
no, I'm saying I don't know if it was tear jerking.
But okay, you get what I'm saying, though. She offered a sob story as to, I got abused by this man.
Yeah. Which obviously sucks, but like,
sure, it's sad,
she
but that's
didn't really
no reason.
she didn't really she didn't play into the plot at all.
And if she wasn't a threat, she didn't even have to stick around. If she wasn't a threat, don't kill her. Just be like, all right, get out of here.
She was in love with Hitman, so she had to
For no
stay.
reason. Okay,
he's
you know
a
what?
handsome fella.
I will argue that he probably treated her better than any other man has.
That's true. Maybe it could have been like a commentary on Stockholm Syndrome or something. But
Well,
instead,
see,
there was no commentary.
I said this while we were watching the film.
What'd you
There
say?
is a scene where after they go out to dinner, which was literally just a ploy for Hitman to kill a guy. After they go out to dinner, she's drunk and she tries to seduce the Hitman, and the Hitman ain't having none of that. And
She tries to get a hit
he
of
like
the
nerve
man.
shocks her and she falls asleep. I felt that scene was so stupid. Here's how it could have been better. Build a connection, build a development, make her actually start to like claim like she's like, you know what? Even though you've been pulling me around, you've been the nicest you've ever been than any other guy's been. Freaking, I've been abused my whole life, not just by Belkoff, but by like tons of other men.
Do something. Give us some reason to care.
Make her start kind of crying, and then make her have a condition where she's just like, you know what, I want to have sex because it's the only thing that like I know is comfort.
Yeah.
And so she like tries to do something, and then he knocks her out, and he's like, don't you realize it's not what you need? You know, he wouldn't say it like that, but I'm just saying it would be like the straight up just like,
That's not what you need, sister.
it's like I'm not gonna use you for that. And then it would have also developed the character of Hitman and would have said, look, I'm in this for the job. I don't care about this stuff. Or
Don't worry
it could have
about that,
made him
Joe.
more
He
emotional.
didn't have a character.
He had
Don't worry
facial
about
expressions.
a character. What are you kidding? You saw the tits and the guns, right? You don't need character.
I saw there was a scene where a suitcase of money exploded, and then a big gun shootout happened
Yeah, it was great. It was very American. I loved it.
in the middle of Istanbul. So American.
I think here's something these movie games do a lot that it drives me fucking nuts. Is like they're too afraid to like take a big chunk from the game for some
Yeah.
reason. Like instead of doing like say a heist that's very like reminiscent of one of the Hitman games, they'll like put little details in there, like he poisoned the guy with the amnetic, I believe, poison that makes him go throw up.
Yeah.
You put the rubber duck in there. You know, you do.
Which were nice touches. You know,
You
I'll give
snipe
them
something. Yeah, but like, just do the thing from the game, which is the reason we're watching the movie in the first place. It's like they're too afraid to commit.
There is a fine line. You cannot copy the medium because, of course, if you're copying the medium, why not just go play the game? There's no reason to watch the movie if it's not going to be a unique experience. Yes, I agree with you that they should have added in more things that would have made it a Hitman movie. The whole premise of Hitman is that type of gameplay.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to copy the story from the game. You didn't have to copy the sequence of events. All you literally had to do is set up a scene, even if it was just one full scene,
Just make it like, you know,
where it
make
plays
it like
out
the
just
games.
like a scene in the game. And
Not
then,
even just like, just
well, you know
make
what
it
I mean?
reminiscent.
Like, he goes in and he infiltrates. He knocks somebody out. We see him knock somebody out. He changes clothes. He's walking around. We get a suspenseful moment where we think he's about to get caught because somebody sees him that kind of recognizes him, and then he manages to either slip away or kill them, you know?
Yeah, you just need something that's like, oh yeah, other than the bald and the barcode, this is a Hitman game. Or a
Yeah.
Hitman movie.
It was just a sad excuse for, like, an MI5 ripoff.
Basically, yeah.
All right,
But
well, let's...
speaking of MI5,
Yeah.
how did you feel about the style of the movie?
Visually,
Like
it
visually,
was okay.
yeah.
I don't think it
Tonally.
was terrible. I think it was decent. There was one thing that you brought up to my attention that did. There was hardly ever a still shot.
yeah.
The camera was always in a boat. Like, the camera was moving, and I understand there's an
I
aesthetic.
believe
to that
that was
sometimes.
like that started with Jason Bourne. Like the camera's always got to be moving during shots,
And
regardless of the energy of the scene.
it's like, yeah, to me that doesn't make sense because, like, if it's a tense scene, sure, I can imagine kind of like the handheld look where it's just kind of like shaking a little bit. But if it's not an intense scene at all and it's just straight up talking, which was a lot of the film, surprisingly,
Well, yeah.
it's just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna have to adjust my eyes every 2 seconds to
Excuse me, let me-
relocate where this man's mouth is.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it didn't stick out at all, which I guess is
No.
not necessarily a bad thing. it
And
just
it,
kind
you
of,
know, and it matched the aesthetic of the games.
I guess. Oh, speaking of the games, there's a fun little, I guess, reference where Hitman
Fourth wall
swings through
break?
swings through a window, and he walks in on two guys playing the video game Hitman, which
To me-
I'm not sure what that means.
To me, that is completely unnecessary. Because, okay, for example, if you're going to make a Mario Brothers movie, you're going to hope, and it makes me think of an example where this was done poorly, yet people love. In one of the recent Marvel movies, or probably not too recent at this point, Civil War, Spider-Man is introduced.
Yes.
He starts webbing up Ant-Man. He
Yeah.
says, this is just like that old movie. And then it's revealed the old movie he's talking about is Star Wars. Here's the problem with that. In a universe where Star Wars exists as a film franchise, implies that multiple actors from the MCU who play the characters in that universe cannot exist.
I mean, you gotta say that's maybe a little less on the nose.
That is a little less on the nose than
playing
straight
the
up
video game.
No, I understand, and I agree that it is definitely more tastefully done. The joke was funny in the film, but I am saying that is kind of a similar level, except in this situation, it's literally, huh?
How did
Bald
you
guy
feel
with
about
bar
it?
head, and then they look at the TV
Yeah.
screen, bald guy
Oh.
with barcode on his head. You know,
Video
it's
game is real. My
Yeah.
dream is true.
like that's weird. You can't do that.
How did you feel about?
It's not like they had a scene in Marvel where it was just like, hey, this is Mace Windu, and Samuel L. Jackson's character looks at it and says, huh, wonder who that is, you know.
Well, kind of that. Did you ever see Logan?
No, I actually did not.
They basically they do it really well. I think the comic books exist, the X-Men comic books,
Oh, really?
but they're based on the X-Men, like that are in the universe instead
See, that
of.
makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kinda
but
fun.
then but see, because they're famous and they're popular, you can have merch, and that's what they've done in the
Yeah.
Batman and Superman movies and stuff as well. But Hitman is not supposed to be famous. You're not supposed to know who this man is. This organization is not supposed to exist.
My video game came to life, Mama.
Yeah, they better be killing some video game developers in that world.
How do they know?
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, were there any other glaring errors you had with the movie from more of a production
that made
standpoint?
me very upset.
It made
Or
you
just
upset.
ones that, because I think the ones that made me upset were the fact that there were multiple points where you could see scenes that would better develop the characters. Like, I personally would see them play out in my head, and then I would think, huh, why didn't they do that?
That's true. It could have been.
It could have been a lot better. And I think you probably felt the same way when you
Well,
look at an
I
action
told you
scene,
during
know?
when we were watching the movie that I just stopped thinking of it as a Hitman movie.
Right, because
and
then
just
you're
started
gonna
thinking of
be...
it as like a bad action movie, which
Yeah.
I get it. It worked out a lot better.
Oh, as an action movie, if it was a standalone action movie away from the Hitman universe, it
was
would have
alright.
just been it would have been a decent action movie.
I don't know about that. It was
It
all
would
right.
no, it would have been decent because at least the concept, say if the Hitman games did not exist, the concept would have been semi-unique.
I mean, not even real. Like the hit. It's just like Hitman. It's not really that unique.
But no, I'm saying the society that they built it upon.
I
This
guess.
group of you're right, that's not even too unique. But at least it would be different enough if the games did not exist.
I mean, the uniqueness of Hitman. I don't think anyone plays Hitman for the deep storyline.
No, not
play,
really.
You play it for the. It's just fun. It's just like a fun sandbox.
So do you think that that's maybe where one of the places the movie fell, is if they had focused on it being just a fun...
I think it
like
should
you
have
said, a
just been
fun
like
heist
a
movie.
Yeah, it should have been kind of like a Die Hard type thing. Like Hitman has to stay in one location that we get to know really well. You know, like you do in the games, and then the story develops. He's not really a participant in the story, but it develops kind of around him, and he has to react to it. So
Sure.
it keeps us on our toes. Keeps him on his
Well, and
toes.
if they were to make him a participant of the story, they could do it in such ways where it would not freaking make him, I don't know, it wouldn't make him have to show emotion. It wouldn't.
But
make
even in
him
the
have to-
games, in Hitman 2016, his role in the story is basically they find out the leader of ICA is a bad guy, so he goes kills him. That's like the whole story. Which is to say, not a lot.
No, but it doesn't need to be because the gameplay makes up for that.
Yeah, and Hitman's not even... This is another thing, is we look at... Before we do a canon, we look at... like we have a list of video game movies, and we just look at everyone ever made. And they just pick the weirdest movies to make. Like Blood Rain. House of the Dead. Like, who's looking at these and says these are good for the
Because
story?
like Hitman is generic.
Hitman is generic.
So I'm saying in this world where Hitman exists as the game franchise, it's a generic. You could see it as an action movie, and that's probably what Hollywood was thinking, was we could see it as an action movie. Now, like I said, if Hitman did not exist, it would have been a little different. It would have been, ooh, think about this concept for an action movie. Nobody's done this before in this way.
So
But
we'll
it's
just
the
do
fact
it
that
exactly.
Hitman had
We'll
existed
do it
in
exactly
game.
in the same way you do every other action movie.
Right, but it would have sat a little better because Hitman wouldn't have existed. The fact that Hitman existed and it was a good game, and then they looked at it and said, because it was such a popular game, let's make a movie, which I can bet you 10 to 1, Hitman was probably designed almost to parody action movies.
It could be, yeah.
Where it was a fun experience based off of movies that probably the creator liked or stories that the creator liked.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Joseph, would you... I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that this movie has been in the trash since 2007. Would you keep it in there, or do you want to, take it out, dust it off, maybe put it back on the shelf? What are you thinking?
Personally,
Yeah,
I'm going to keep this in the trash. I
Keep it
may
in the
give the
duty-
newest
duty
one
bin?
a second chance. We'll see.
I think this was a complete waste of the Hitman IP and the Hitman storyline. I don't know.
Is there a storyline?
We'll check out Hitman Agent 47 here in a couple episodes, and maybe that time they didn't screw it up that bad.
And you know what? We may even change our opinion about this one if it's even more messed up.
I guess that's true. If the second one's somehow worse, which that's never happened, right? Right? Fantastic Four. What?
And with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more, just click that subscribe button. Also, feel free to check out our website, where we have every episode of everything we've ever done, including our regularly uploaded podcast, Pop Filter. And if you want to help us make more videos like this, you can support us on Patreon. Links are in the description below.